Yep, I'm Carrie from Sussex Green Living. This is our Sussex Green Ideas presentation on refills. And I'd like to welcome Elle Runkton, who's now going to talk to us about refill services. So welcome, Elle.
Thank you, Carrie. I'm going to try. As you mentioned, my PC is jamming a little bit. I don't have the control I was hoping. Okay, lovely. There we go. For anybody who doesn't use Zoom on a regular basis, on the app section, you should have crossed quizzical if you don't want to, or give me some feedback. Agenda is probably be running about 20 minutes. Going to talk about why this matters to Sussex Green Living, why refills matter, who's working on it, and then hand over to Liz to talk about local research, what resources are available, and then a piece on questions as well. So keep your fingers crossed for me that everything works in the way that we hope. So who am I, and what makes me think that I might be able to talk to you about circular economy, and in particular about refills? I am hoping that the slide will move down. Carrie, if you've got a chat, you can message me or text me if it's not working. I'm stuck on my slide. I have to edit this out. I'll just give you a piece on my background very briefly. After university, I worked at the Tidy Britain Group and was there for a number of years working on carbon footprinting and behaviour change. At the time, John Gummer was in looking after Environment Minister role. After that, I went to Coca-Cola and worked on packaging and lightweighting and European marketing. And after that, I went to work with WWF in the Middle East. So, Carrie, I can't make the slides down. I'm not sure.
If you actually email me your PowerPoint, I'll put it on and I can turn them for you. Should have said that in the beginning.
Yeah, I'm not sure it will email at the moment. The graphics appear to be too heavy, and it's not, we've got a hiccup. Oh, there we go. That's it. I think there's a lag.
Oh, yeah.
Great stuff.
That's
okay,
fine.
So we can see on the right-hand side there, I was at Coca-Cola, I was involved with the Olympics project. Parachuted to the stadium. WWF in the Middle East, I worked on a series of Ministry of Climate Change and Environment, local authorities, environment agencies, but a lot of the big FMCGs who at that time were taking a lot of heat around plastic pollution. The guys perhaps who were responsible for microplastics were not receiving that same heat. So it was an interesting topic because the UAE and the Middle East, as you know, are such important when it comes round. Qualification from the University of Cambridge and Leeds. I've now come to Sussex and I'm sharing my home with garden spiders, which are probably as big as the one you can see here. And there's just me and Bruce, my 15-year-old, slightly blind, very deaf, very arthritic, stuffy. So that's a little bit about me, and I'm hoping now that my slides will move down. I wanted to put this in context, really, of the work that Carrie and the Board of Trustees has been doing. And I think this fits about sharing information on how to adopt a environmentally friendly lifestyle, and also share with our peer groups, our friends, our family, how they might start to reduce the negative impact on the natural world. And there's a phrase that we use quite a lot in WWF, which is arguably most of you who are here today, is how do we encourage those who are less passionate? That's the nation. We're all learning every day. So one of the things I think is really important and I'm passionate about is this carbon tunnel vision. And we hear this quite a lot from government and arguably from those in authority around how we have to move to a net zero lifestyle and we have to have a low carbon living. And I think that is really important, but it's also important that we start to expand that lens and we recognize that biodiversity loss is probably the biggest issue that we need to get a handle on when it comes to things like pollutants, when it comes to pesticides, when it comes to chemical runoff. That is critically important. You can see all of the other factors on here, but the two things that we can control are our consumption and our education. And I think if we recognize that those two things in our immediate control, scary slide, please don't look at it too deeply, but I want to challenge the myth that some people have that circular economy and closed loops is just really about faster, smarter recycling. And I really like this graphic, which originated from the Ellen MacArthur Foundation. And you can see here that when we take our materials and we put them into manufacturing and we put them into processing and then we send them off and we use them, often it's the closed loops that are closest to us, as in sharing, maintaining and prolonging, or reusing and redistributing, move towards refurbishing and remanufacturing out on that right-hand side of the chart there, and we start to move towards recycling. That's when it becomes very energy and resource intensive. And for example, on recycling, we know that there's recycling of aluminium in particular, there's an awful lot of air pollution and a lot of water toxins that come as a result of that. So I guess the opportunity for us is to think about recycling as the last stage in our process. And as you guys already have the repair cafes and you reuse and redistribute, it's these central lines that we need to be staying within. I'll move us on to the next slide because sometimes it's easy for us to forget as we go through our daily lives that all of our activity has some impact on the planet. And when I refer back to Ellen MacArthur Foundation again, we talk about renewable energy and making sure that we're living that low carbon. But the estimate is only 55% of our emissions will be reduced by switching to renewables. So clearly that's not the silver bullet. However, if we start to move towards more of a circular economy, then we have a better chance of hitting that sort of like 95 going close towards 100%. And when we talk about circular economy, we're really talking about designing and then regenerating natural systems. And you guys know this already, but it's these green starred areas on the right here about which materials we choose, how we choose to transport them, what the manufacturing processes are, and what the transportation systems are that has such a big impact, not just our use and our end of life. Now, this is another scary chart, but I don't need you to read this, but I want to give you a sense of confidence here that the work that Carrie and the Board of Trustees and her volunteers have done, that there is a clear plan for being able to drive change over the next 3 years. And it's thanks to your support and your dedication that Carrie's able to make the success and the progress that she is. So I guess it's an opportunity to say thank you. Because when we kind of looked at how Sussex Green Living might focus on what were the best ideas, it was very clear that you're already doing a lot of this work. You know, whether it's on refills, repair cafes, or even on the food sharing. A lot of this work is already well underway. But one of the opportunities I've highlighted in red there is to really start to reduce, is obviously helpful to the economy, but we have to make sure that we're designing out waste at all stages of the process. And on here you can see that, sorry, Bruce is making his presence now, but you can see here that electronic waste is a critically important one. I think the UK is either first or second in the bad rankings of the world in terms of the amount of electronic waste that we have. And the key here, I think, really is to understand what choices we make. And often there's been a myth around it's our transport that causes the biggest environmental damage. But a lot of research shows it's actually our food systems, food choices we make, and the food packaging that goes alongside that. And I think as consumers, at some point, there is a trade-off. Now, Carrie knows I love my choices, but when I started to look into this and understand on this left-hand side here, what's happening for energy consumption by the different types of coffee we might have, whether we choose to have an espresso or a French press, or indeed those little capsules that they're so fond of recycling. We can see from what's called a life cycle assessment or an environmental impact study, what happens through each of those stages. And I'd like to just draw your attention, if I might, to the packaging here. And the package, it's not very easy to read, but here on the capsule, in terms of the environmental impact, we can see this is the packaging. So it's not just about recycling those capsules, but it's about the energy, the water, the minerals, the training that capsule before we use it. So I'm going to be somewhere around a French press, the ideal old-fashioned way, or off a filter. It certainly appears from an environmental impact that they could be our better options. You guys are probably as familiar as I am with where we are on packaging, and I'll just touch on this for a moment and expand our lens again, because we all get really agitated about plastic and the harm that plastic will do to the environment. And I know that better than anybody, having spent time in the Middle East, having been in the ocean, having seen the microplastics, and having worked with the plastics industry. But we shouldn't forget, when it comes to environmental impact, glass, paper, and metal also have a detrimental impact. We just have to manage how much of that we can resolve. What is clear is that the research I've reviewed shows that 38% of packaging in our shopping basket can't be reprocessed. It's likely to be sent to landfill. And you guys are an expert on what is and isn't happening to our packaging waste in West Sussex. But if you look at the numbers where we are at the total UK, 2.87 million tonnes per annum, and then another 120 billion packaging just from cosmetics. And sometimes cosmetics are in glass, or sometimes they're in paper. But I guess my key message here is we have the opportunity to reduce all of our packaging and reduce our environmental impact. So that kind of says, really, if you take the inspiration from the experts, research from the Life Cycle Assessment Centre says that if we buy a refill instead of buying the complete product, the opportunity is a saving of 70% on our CO2, 65% on energy, and 45% on water. So I guess the message is, how do we avoid not only problem packaging, but what can we do to avoid packaging at all in the first place? I wanted to kind of share now some interesting snapshots from who's doing what. Some of it's in Europe, some of it's in the UK. But I think that anybody who knows Lush as a major brand, they're anti-packaging, and you can go and buy all sorts of wonderful, delicious smelling things that are wrapped very consciously. But one of the new innovations that they've come from is a lipstick with no packaging whatsoever. And this wax strap that you can see there is what protects the lipstick before you use it. And interestingly, it's been designed to fit into any lipstick case, not just a Lush one. I think that's in correlation to Gillette. 60% of the packaging that came in this refillable mascara was single use and had to be thrown away. So I think we have to be conscious of, yes, everybody's on the journey. Yes, people are trying to drive the change to move towards refillables. But how do we make sure that we're looking at that with a discerning eye, and we're choosing the best in class examples rather than being fooled and still ending up with their packaging waste? You guys have probably seen this. It's been in market for around about 3 years, and it comes out of Unilever. I have a lot of respect and admiration for Unilever. If you remember, Paul Polman moved them away from quarterly reporting, which meant that they didn't have to tell shareholders every quarter what their financial results would be. and it gave them that chance to really start to innovate and to not be held over profit share as they go forward towards finding new ways of doing things. And one of the things that came out of that was the eco refill, and I can't pronounce SIF, I'm hoping, but it's made with 75% less plastic, and it has the opportunity to remove 1.5 million plastic bottles. Because it's in a concentrated format, 97% of water is now not transported, which means there's 87% less trucks on the road. And I guess the question is, could this be the new norm? And why I've put this slide on here is I think when we start to look at refills that we can get locally, and I know that there's a plethora of that for us, how do we understand what our cost per mil is, and how in this, what I would say, are tightening our belts environment, how do we understand what not only saves us money, but reduces our environmental impact? This graphic on the right there, the £2 is from Sainsbury, and it's on promotion at the moment. I think the normal retailing price for that 700 ml is around about £3. Again, more work from Unilever. Now, this is just come out of Europe, and it is going to come across the UK. They're in aluminium bottles, and the trial was in Leeds, I think, in Asda, and a number of co-op superstores. So in co-op convenience stores, but the larger format. And here, this is a refill station, and I think you pay 20p to be able to get your refill bottle, and you go and fill up what you need. And I think this is a great way for us to be considering how we get to a equivalent cost per mil for not only Sussex Green Living, but arguably any of the independent retailers in West Sussex. This one again is another piece of aluminium as a refill, and it's out of Unilever. Unilever joined a partnership here, and they're taking their ice cream into this, and some of you may already be purchasing it. It does seem to be better from an environmental standpoint because they have a hot wash to clean the packaging and then it comes back to you. But I want to share this next around Tesco and Loop, because I'm hoping that we'll have something in our region around their refillable aisle. So this is another partnership with Loop, and you can see here the 10 stores will have 88 branded and on-label products. Again, it's a 20p deposit for each reusable container. And you download an app, and then you get a refund if you return it. It's somewhere you've got brands such as Simple, Bisto, Radox, all of the kind of primary brands that we would expect to see in a supermarket basket, as well as on label. They're now moving into this packaging format. But I think this slide is really interesting in light of what's happening with TerraCycle, because TerraCycle is the parent company for Loop. And as we know, TerraCycle has got a large organization across 22 countries, and they have been moving towards hard to recycle trash, but phasing that out. And the question is this new aluminium refillable, returnable model what's taking over the priorities? And if you look at the bottom of the slide here, you can see the types of brands that are engaging in this. So there could be a phase out, arguably, of plastic packaging for those primary brands. And anyone who's interested can go on the Loop UK website, and there's lots of information for you guys to read through. Waitrose as well. We know that Waitrose is extending its refillable trial. And we've seen this, I think, in many formats, many fascias, this type of offering around dry goods. But what's interesting is the research here that came out from Waitrose study was 94% of consumers are more likely will buy a product because they think it's outside of us, are interested. The key fact, I think, there is that value for money from refill stations was a key. So there's an opportunity for us to understand that, and maybe Liz and the team have something to share later. Coming up to my last slides now, to flag, if anybody's not aware, 16th of June is World Refill Day. There's an action for everybody who's interested here, which is to go and download the app, and you can put in your postcode and it will tell you your refill places. I'm not sure if Carrie's a part of this scheme yet, but it may be worth a consideration between the board, as in should Sussex Green Living engage. I think the other action for us is every time you go shopping, if you don't have a refill facility in store, should you have, and should you be talking to your store managers or your supervisors about how they can start to provide the brands that you want in the formats that you want. And then the last point I think really is that we have got some amazing stores, small businesses and not so small businesses, who are trying to offer us refills. And the opportunity for us is to start shopping local and supporting them. And if you do use social, feel free to call out the good guys and the bad guys using the hashtag choose to reuse. That brings me up to my 20 minutes. So Carrie, I'm going to stop sharing, hand over to you in case there's any questions.
Thank you so much, Elle. That was absolutely brilliant. I'm sorry, I haven't been looking at the chat, but I don't think actually anyone's put any questions in there. But yeah, the reception, the sound went a bit dodgy in places, but hopefully everyone picked up on all the information. That was really informative. I learned lots. I'd love to get your slides, Elle, if I may, and we will actually share the content. I'm actually going to turn. Shall I?
I've got a question.
Yeah,
I've got a question here.
Yeah.
Yep. So Melanie, with Loop, how many times you can reuse aluminium packaging? Aluminium as a material can be recycled indefinitely. So, and you can use 100%, whereas with plastic, when you're recycling, often the plastic degrades, and so you have to add more prime polymer, or you have to add other chemicals in order to get the product performance or the packaging performance. That's not the case with aluminium, which is why it's being touted at the moment as one of the options to take over from plastic. Any other questions?
Do you want to put your hands up or turn your camera on and ask the question if anyone has any other questions? I mean, Elle, can I ask, whilst people are thinking, TerraCycle, I sort of knew vaguely that they were involved, but didn't realise they were the parent company of Loop. How do you have any idea of the sort of the speed and the scale at which this is likely to move forwards, and how long has it been in a trial in the UK?
Yeah, I get a sense that they've been trialing refills probably for the last 3 years, if not a little bit longer. I think it will depend on adoption, and it's not easy. There's a lot of complexity. So, for example, if you think about the take back, how do you get that packaging back into the store? Now, Unilever are working on that with Tesco, and there's a drop-off point. But how does that packaging as aluminium get in? And then how does it get from the store? And then how does it go through what's called a hot wash process to make sure that it is hygienically ready for its refill? So interestingly, as part of my day job, I've got a conversation to understand what are the barriers to the adoption on this, and what is the phasing for scale. So I don't have the finite answer to that, but it's widely known across our sector that it's not an easy challenge.
So until they've well and truly trialed it and they know it's commercially viable, there's no point us applying pressure. We just have to wait and see.
I think it's a really interesting one, and maybe it's something you and the board can discuss. I'm a big fan of refill in any format. If when Melanie and the team come back and say, you know, we don't have enough refill facilities and startups of the products that we want to buy because we've got gaps, then that's the time, I think, to apply pressure. My recommendation would be for you and the board to go and have that conversation with the refill org and see where that added value is in Sussex Green Living. And is it better for you to be involved with them and at the same time decide if you want to apply pressure. But I think everyone will make their own choices. I'm a big fan of small independents, but that I recognise that might not be convenient. Other people do, once a month shop, and it's either delivered or they go to the store. There's a question from Jill Shuker. Coca-Cola are exploring refills. Obviously, it's proprietary protected. There's a piece that they announced in the Grocer magazine for anyone who's really interested. The Grocer will often have articles. So yes, they're exploring it. I mean, if you think Coke has always had what's called a bag in box. And so, for example, when you go to McDonald's or you go to any of the chicken franchises, you get free refills. But how that will move itself into a retail scenario, I'm not sure. But they are exploring that right now.
So Jane actually has passed a comment about having some concern about aluminium because she thought that there was some link between aluminium and cancer. Do you have any thoughts on that, Elle?
Yes. The aluminium cancer link was a small sample, but I believe it was linked to air pollution. So again, interestingly, you can do that research, but there's a lot of stuff that's on the science websites, but it kind of dates 2012, 2013, 2015, I think is the last time I'd seen that. And again, most aluminium, in particular for food products, has a plastic lining. There's a polymer that goes inside that to prevent contamination. So, and I think you probably remember that's why we don't use aluminium pans without a lining anymore.
That's interesting. So if there aren't any more questions at this moment, what I think we might do is move on and invite Liz to just say a few words. And if anyone has any other questions for then Liz or Elle after Liz has spoken, then perhaps we can come back. Is that okay?
And while we're just loading up for Liz, Jill Shuker, what does Sainsbury's do with all the plastic? Carrie has written to a number of the supermarkets. We believe that some of it was going to Poland and that had been identified through the group previously. But may we pick that one up, Jill, offline or at the end? Liz, over to you.
Okay, I was just going to mention the big plastic count actually, because it relates to what you're saying. Are people aware of this going on this week? I don't know if anyone's aware. I'm doing it. It doesn't sound like anyone else. Oh yeah, you're doing it, Carrie. It's a Greenpeace initiative. Oh yeah, I'm getting a couple of thumbs up. Yeah, excellent. Oh, fabulous. A few thumbs up. Oh, so people do know. So for those of you that don't, it's a Greenpeace initiative where you count all the plastic that you use, that you chuck out, that you recycle, just all of it for 7 days. You upload the information, it goes back and all the numbers are going to be crunched. You'll get your own personal kind of plastic footprint, but also it will feed into a bigger exercise. So it'd be really good. I don't know how long it's going to take, obviously, but I think, if you can, I'd urge people to do it because it's only Wednesday. If you feel able to, it's going to be a really good thing to do. So that it's just it does relate to what we've been saying in the presentation and obviously to refills. And it's the first time we're actually going to get any sort of count, I imagine, on people's use. I can't imagine there's anything similar. I've not heard of anything similar where we would actually have really reliable self-reported figures on what people do, and hopefully there'll be a percentage of recycling and landfill. So it's going to be a really, really good thing. So that was just a sort of side thing, but it does relate to what we're doing. And actually we can quote this in everything we do. Once we have this, we can quote this, we can refer to it. It's going to be really, really helpful, I think. And I think from a public education point of view, you can never do too much, can you? And this will help. It will just underpin all that we're doing. So yeah, anyway, just if you're not doing it and you can, just do it even for a few days. So that's that. So as you know, I volunteer on the refills and started to look at, what's the cost comparison, and Suzanne and Caroline have helped me a bit, because we know refills are cheaper. We know this. I don't think I appreciated how much cheaper. And that's really important in the current climate, isn't it? That's really important. So thanks, Melanie, for the link there. So, you know, it really is that much cheaper. And we can, I'm doing some stats over the last few months. We're saving typically something like 80 bottles every time we do a refill session. So, you know, again, that's more education for people to learn how much, you know, there's the cost of it, there's also the saving of plastic. So, you know, the research is quite startling, and this is just, if you look at sort of a bottle of Faith in Nature shampoo, it's a couple of quid to refill it, and to buy a new one is about £6. It's just a complete sort of no-brainer, and it's best to do a direct comparison with a product like that, where you can really see, right, that's what I'm paying to refill, and that's what I'm paying if I'm buying a brand new plastic bottle. What was I going to say? So I've been looking at sort of other resources, and we've been putting it on the website, just what's out there. And there's more and more coming online, I think, online and in person, opportunities for people to use refill services. If you do hear of anything, because things are changing all the time, and please let us know. It's really helpful to have eyes and ears, particularly in bits of the district you might not know as well. Anything useful around this, we can put it on the website, and people can have that information. And I think also it's quite good, you know, if people go online and look at what we've got there, any comments useful for us, any feedback for us to look to improve what we've got online for people to see. So yeah, I don't know if I need to say any more than that, but I think I'm going to continue to do the research. Not always easy to do direct comparisons, because if you look at supermarkets, they don't stock YOD, they don't stock Eco-Leaf, we can't get that from Tesco's. They do Akuva because people recognise that. They might do Method, that's fine. I mean, you know, in some ways it doesn't matter as long as people are buying something green. That's how I sort of tend to look at it. But we would rather people buy the refills, wouldn't we? And that's what we need to sort of steer people towards, ideally. But all the stuff about Loop also makes me think, you know, there's lots of other outlets and places for people to go, and there's a lot more education that we can do, you know, and all the events that we've got coming up. So does that cover everything you wanted me to say, really?
I think so, yeah, thank you. I mean, unless, I don't know whether Suzanne's here, certainly Caroline's here, whether they've got from the research that they've done, anything else that you want to contribute. Would you like to say? Yep, Caroline? Thanks, Liz.
That was brilliant, Liz. I mean, obviously, Liz is sort of running this little initiative. I think I'm just giving very sort of minimal local information. Something that we did discuss when the three of us got together, and I don't know, Liz, if you did sort of get an answer from Carrie about this, was, do we need people's permission before we put them on our website? And even if we don't need the permission, is it courteous to tell them?
If it's a shop, I think they would very much want us to be promoted. They're in the public domain. They would be wanting us to promote it. So no, I wouldn't think we need to go to that. I should think they'd be very grateful. I mean, that we're
just from my experience, because I don't go into Horsham that much, although I live in Horsham, I don't actually do that much shopping as were. So somewhere I use a lot is Town and Country Way, and I had a long chat to Vince actually, and the first thing I did when I walked in recently is I said, oh, have you heard of Sussex Green Living? Well, of course, the first thing he says is no. So I gave him a little sort of painted picture of what we do, but what would have been nice, and again, I mentioned this to Liz and Suzanne when we had our chat, is if I could have perhaps left him a very simple mini poster, a sort of 5 size, and said, oh, would you mind putting this in your window, or can I leave you this for your notice board? So then after that experience, I actually stopped going into possible shops. What I did is I just took photographs of the outside or did internet research, because I thought it's a missed opportunity. I don't want to go in, explain who we are, but not be able to give anything and then have to go back again. So I was waiting to get the feedback via Liz and you, Carrie, as to could we use that as a marketing opportunity for
Absolutely
ourselves?
brilliant. Yeah, I mean, we are just at this very moment in time, because we're going to lots of events. We're going to many 2-day and 3-day events. We're going to the South of England show. We are actually, as of today, I've just agreed an order for designing a little 4-page A5 brochure and 15,000 leaflets being printed, which is a lot of paper, but we are going to engage with a lot of people. So we will look at that. Mel is on board as of Monday. So we are meeting on Monday, hopefully with Sheila as well. And we will be looking at our marketing assets. Yes, most definitely, we would like everybody to share the word, about Sussex Green Living and the solutions that are out there. The refill page will be a brilliant resource. So what we plan to do actually for the brochure that I was talking about is have a QR code, so people at shows can actually go straight through to that refill page. So we, really want to encourage everybody to keep us posted. A new shop pops up, let us know. Also, another thought was I was talking to Barbara, our Storrington Womble and Repair Cafe lead, who's here with us tonight. And in Storrington, there's no refill shop. So that's something that I think personally Sussex Green Living could be looking at and seeing how we could perhaps support Barbara, if they'd like it, in Storrington, with providing maybe through Infinity, through our trade account, some refill. So those are also conversations, Caroline, and anyone here tonight, that we'd like to be having. If you haven't got refills in your community and there is a monthly community event like that, or the church, then maybe we can actually collaborate and help to supply those refill services just to get it off the ground. So thank you, Caroline. Have you still got your hand up?
Sorry, I've just thought of something else I jotted down during Elle's talk about water refills. Great, and I am aware of the app that shops that are willing, and they've got the blue teardrop water sign that you can go in and ask for your bottle to be refilled. Is there perhaps the opportunity to put links to water fountains? Because when I was doing my trek round Horsham, and again, I don't normally go into Swan Walk, I noticed they've got a new water fountain just outside the toilets, and I wasn't aware there was a public water fountain there. So I'm just wondering, could that be added to that water refill list?
Yeah, I mean, come on. I was going to say that the Kind of Living team actually set up and have been trying to spread the bottle refills in Horsham district. I know that, or Horsham town, sorry. I know that because of COVID, that came to a bit of a grinding halt. Liz might know. I did ask actually in the early stage a couple of years ago whether we could actually have a list, because my phone's very old and I can't actually accommodate that app on my phone. And so I said, well, is there a list? Could we add it to Sussex Green Living? And the answer was no. It could be asked again, but Liz, did you have a contribution?
So I was just going to say, I remember asking Jeremy Quinn, he was at an event, I remember asking him about fountains, and I think, I've noticed they disappeared a bit, like the one that always used to be the local pool. They just got a bit like some hand dries, things got put out of action because of COVID, because of infection risk. But where we are now, I don't see any harm in starting that conversation again. It doesn't feel like it's a difficult thing to do now, is it? It doesn't feel like it's asking for the stars, does it? So
no, maybe one of the refill team could actually approach the Kind of Living for Horsham Town, for our area, and see whether you can get a list of the water refill locations. It must be possible, mustn't it? So that we can add it to this refill page.
And Carrie, I'll just come in there. If anybody needs it, and thank you, Caroline, you're exactly right, the little water droplet. There is a number of assets and materials available. So with the refill day being the 16th of June, it almost feels like, albeit in only a couple of weeks, but a good opportunity to re-engage that conversation, as you say. yeah, I 100% agree. If the assets are there, images, text messages, etc., let's try and use them where we can.
Well, perhaps if you refill, the refill team could actually get as much information together as possible, the bottles as well. And with the help of Mel, our new wonderful communications lady, we can actually get that out ready for that refill day. Does anyone have any other questions or comments? I don't know, for anyone here? Elle, Caroline, Liz? No, possibly. What about Alison? Do you want to share what you're doing at the weekend with Transition Horsham and Kind of Living?
Yes. On Horsham Market, which is in the Carfax, we have Seedling Saturday, which is an opportunity to share seedlings where you might have planted a few too many, or too many have come up, or you used the whole packet because you didn't want to waste it, and now you've got more than you can actually use. Or if you have found things haven't come up very well, it might be an opportunity to get some replacements. It's from 9:30 to 5, but if you're coming, I wouldn't leave it until 5 because I don't know quite what will be left by then. But yes, it's from 9:30 till 5. If you are coming with seedlings, it would be great if you could come fairly early, if possible, so that we can share them. There'll also be information about the allotment and about the other aspects of the community allotment that we've been engaged in, the seed swap and so on, and the seed circle. And then the Kind of Living team are preparing the way for next year's show. And also they are distributing information and selling biscuits, very nicely decorated biscuits that we hope will inspire people to change what they do.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Alison. And I'm going to drop off. I'm coming for a meeting with Horsham District Council tomorrow, and I'm going to drop off some flyers and maybe a pavement sign for you to promote the Sussex Green Hub, which obviously is the week after. Yeah, and we were going to join Transition Horsham with the Inspiration Eco Station, but we've actually got a paid invitation to go to the Harwood group to their EV fair in Pulborough. So yep, and Elle I think is going to come along and help at that. So yep, that's actually great. And then just to spread the word, we're going to be at the Floral Fringe with the Bright New Future Roadshow on the 4th and 5th of June. At Leonardsley Gardens. So do come along, spread the word, come along and talk to us, come along and help us. The more the merrier. And if there's any volunteers here that might be prepared to actually help, we've got a stand actually at the events over the Jubilee weekend. We're all right in Billingshurst on the Saturday, but on the Sunday in Slimfold, we could really do with an extra volunteer for their street party on Sunday the 5th, where our green stand will be going, with a focus on recycling to support the recycling volunteers in Slinfold. So please email me if anyone could actually help our new volunteer who's put her hand up, but she's new. So yeah, and the last thing I would like to say is that we have actually got the next Sussex Green Ideas meeting, which my computer's thinking about showing or not. There we go. So our next Sussex Green Ideas meeting is on the 15th of June, where Karen will be talking about wasting food and how it's feeding climate change. And then in July, it's Pay to Breathe. So Nicola Peel's going to be presenting on the rainforests and actually how we perhaps should be considering supporting the rainforests. And yeah, she'll talk about that. Then we're going to have August off for Sussex Green Ideas. And then Alison is going to be organising, learning about greener heating in readiness for the winter. And then finally, actually at the top here, which hopefully you can see, I'm one of the co-founders of the South East Climate Alliance. We call it SECA. And on Monday, the 6th of June, we're doing a Zoom event with an amazing guy who is going to be talking, oh, he hasn't got his name there, Dupla, he's got a very unusual name. He's going to be talking about sustainable communities and how he has been involved with building some incredible sustainable communities, Beds Ed in South London, in Brighton, and he's been working on a project with Disney in Paris. So yeah, you're welcome, and I'll share those links with you. So I don't know whether anyone else has got anything to add. I have to add, thank you so much to Elle.
Harry, can I just one quick question?
Yeah.
If anybody knows of grants or interest-free loans for solar, could they flag that, please? We're looking to get solar installed. So anybody who has that, pop something in the chat box, or feel free to.
Is that for a
email
house?
me.
House.
It is for a house.
Right,
So
okay.
we don't have a big community, as you know, but we need to do something. Great. Thank you for
Yeah,
that.
I'll speak to you about that, but thank you. And thank you so much to the Refill team as well for doing all the research to date. And I will share the links to the Refill page, and we'll download the chat, and let's get the message out there about why it's so important to look at refills. So thank you so much, everybody. And we'll speak to you, Barbara, about perhaps refills in Storrington. Yeah. So thanks very much, and thanks, Mel. And we'll see you at the Billingshurst show. Well, I won't, because I'll be at the Floral Fringe, but Rob's coming along with Katrina. Fantastic.
Okay,
Thanks for.
thank you.
Thank you ever so much. Thank you, one and all.
Bye.
Thanks,
Bye.
bye.
Thank you, Elle. Ooh,
Thank you. It was really interesting. Bye.